it's Mindy from My Creative Scoop, and I'm back for my favorite thing September coloring tutorial. This month we are using this stamp set called Fall Friends. I'm going to show you how to color this super cute little girl on top of this pumpkin, and I'm going to show you how to get a very detailed coloring in your pumpkin. So let's get started. Okay, the first thing that we're going to color is her skin. So we're going to get out R32, R30, E13, E11, E00, and E0000. I'm going to start by using my R32, and we're going to give her some rosy cheeks. So just underneath her eye, I'm going to make two little circles. Now we're going to blend that color out by using the R30. So I'm just going to go directly over and bringing out those that R32 and making those circles a little bit bigger. Now I'm going to take my E13, and we want to create a shadow. So the shadow is going to be underneath her hat and kind of on the back side of her face, so coming out from underneath. So I'm just going to take my E13 and go all along the sides of the face and underneath the hat. And also on the inner parts of her ear. And then a little bit that's tucked underneath her scarf. And then also on the inside parts of her hands and all the way around underneath her, where her sweater's falling over her arms or her hands. And then underneath her skirt and all along the back part of her leg. So those are the shadowed areas. So now we're gonna take the next color, which is the E11, and we're gonna just come out a little bit further. And now we're going to take the E00, do the same thing. And once you don't have room for the next shade, just fill the rest of it in. So you're probably going to have that happen with the ears and a little bit on the hands. Now I'm going to take my E40s, and I'm just going to fill in the rest of the face and the legs, and if you have a little bit more room on the hands. Okay, so now we're going to repeat that. So I always like to do a double coat, because sometimes if you don't put it down enough color, it won't blend. So I'm going to do the exact same thing with my E13. And then E11. And then E00. And then again with my E40s. Now this time I'm not going to pull from the dark. I'm going to go in reverse because I want that color to be blended out. If I were to take my lighter color and dab it right here in the darker area, it's just going to push all that color away. So now I'm just going to kind of flick going back into the dark. All right. So now I'm going to give her a little bit of a shadow behind her nose. So I'm going to take my E13 and very, very lightly, I'm just going to do a little tiny outline. And then I'm going to skip, since there's not a whole lot of I don't want it to be a huge shadow, so I'm going to skip between colors. So now I'm going to take my E00 and I'm just going to pull that shadow out a little bit, so that way she's got a little bit of a shadow there. So now we're going to go ahead and do her hair. So I have her, I did her hair an orangey color. So we're going to get out the YR07 and we're also going to get out E99. So there's not a whole lot of room for details, especially up here in these little bangs. So I'm just going to fill her entire hair in using YR07. And then I'm going to take my E99 and just right underneath the hat, I'm just going to add a little bit of a shadow by flicking downwards. And then in between each of these, the little knots between the braids, I'm just going to define those a little bit more by outlining them. And then right underneath the ponytail, I'm going to flick going down just to give her a little bit more definition. You can also take the E99 and just kind of go up and make a couple of little hair strands. And that's it. So I'm not going to go back over because I don't want to blend out those lines. I want them to look like hair. So we're just going to go ahead and leave that. Now I'm going to color her sweater. I colored her sweater a warm gray. So you're going to need W5, W3, W1, and W00. We're going to start with W3. And anywhere that's going to be shadowed is going to be like right behind the scarf. So since the scarf is going to be casting a shadow onto her sweater, we're going to go right underneath there and underneath her arm. And then underneath on this side, on the opposite side of her body, on this arm right there, and then underneath the scarf in the front, and then also a little bit coming around the wrist. So now we're going to blend that out using the W1. So I'm just going to, and since we want this to be white, we don't want to add a whole lot of color. We don't want to fill this in. We're just trying to shadow the white. And now with my W00, I'm going to do a heavy flick, really blending out that color so there's a nice smooth transition between the grays and the white from the paper. And now we're going to take the W5 and I'm just going to go back to those darkest shadowed areas and I'm just going to outline the stamp, the actual image. So right in here, that's going to be a really dark spot that I really want to kind of pop. And then a little bit coming around the sleeve, the wrist, underneath the scarf. So you notice I'm staying very, very close to the actual outline of the image. So now I'm going to, I want to blend that, I want to soften that harsh line up a little bit, but we're going to skip a color. So I'm not going to go my W3 because then it's going to add way too much color down and it's going to start to look really gray. So I'm going to take my W1 and I'm just going to pull the color out by doing a very small flick. And it really softens that harsh line of the W5. So now I've taken my R30 and I added some little soft polka dots to the sweater. So I just laid my marker down and did it in just different shapes. So it gives a little something to her sweater, or yeah, to her sweater. So now we're gonna go ahead and do her scarf. So for her scarf, I've used R32 and R30, and we're also going to be using E44 for the darker shadowing. So we're gonna start with the R32. And back here where she's got a little crease, I'm just gonna add a little bit of color right there, and then right underneath where the scarf is coming out. So back behind there, and there, and then where it's coming out on the top, and then on the opposite side over there. So now we're gonna blend that out with the R30. So I'm just gonna pull that R32 out a little bit, still leaving some white areas because I don't wanna go over the entire, we eventually will go over the entire scarf using the R30, but I want it to stay the lightest, and the more layers we add, the darker it's going to be. So I'm just going to blend out that R32 and then leave the rest of it white for now. So now I'm gonna take my E44 and I'm just gonna add a very small shadow in those areas where we added that R32. Now we're going to replace that color with the R32 by going over it a couple of times to pull it out and blend it through. And now I'm going to take my R30 and I'm going to blend out that R32, and once I've blended it out, then I'll do one swipe over so that way that white area stays its lightest. So the same thing here, I'm just gonna blend out that R32 and then do one swipe over to blend out, or to finish filling in the scarf. So once I have a good blend, now I'm gonna just go back over just to make sure everything is full. So now we're going to color her hat and her boots and her skirt are all the same color combination. So the E44, E43, E42, and E41. So we're gonna start with the E44, and I'm just going to, right in these little areas here that have those little creases, we're really gonna define those and make it really look like her hat has some creases in it. So right behind that line, I'm going to shadow it, and then I'm gonna flick going out just a little. And do the same thing on this side. And the same thing over here. We're gonna extend that line out a little bit more. So now we're just gonna start filling it in, concentrating in those areas first, but still bringing it in a little bit more with each color. So I'm gonna go up using my E43. And the same thing on this side. And I still want this part back here to be its lightest. So I'm just going to pull that color so it comes all the way over. So now I'm going to take my E42 and continue. So now it looks like she's got a little rim there on the top of her hat. I'm going to pull that all the way over, and I still want to have some room with those white areas for the lightest color for the E41. But right where the hat is starting to go back around her head, I'm going to take my E42 and just add a little bit of a shadow right back in here. Now I'm going to take my E41, we're going to do one swipe over, and same thing up here. Now we're going to repeat, so it's really going to make it stand out and make it pop with adding, re-adding those shadows back in. So start with your E44, go up a little bit, and then come out over that little rim we created, and then the same thing over here. and then the E43. And then E42. And E41. So I'm going to do one swipe over again. Now if you want, you can go and make that crease just a little bit darker with your W5. So I'm just gonna focus on that little line that's right here. So I'm gonna just add a little tiny shadow going up and going over, just to make it really pop. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and do her skirt. So I'm gonna start with my E44. And there's really not a whole lot of room here for coloring or shadowing. So right underneath her hand right here, I'm just gonna kind of go over, and right where her skirt is indenting in between her legs, I'm going to make like a little V. And then also on the back part, I'm gonna give that also a little shadow. So the lightest part is really gonna be above this leg right over here. So now I'm gonna skip colors since it's so, the area is very small. So I'm gonna go with my E42. And fill that in. And I'm gonna go back with my E44. And then this time I'm gonna go back with my E43 and just stay right in between those two colors to blend it out. Now for her boots, the same color combination. So I'm gonna take my E44 and we're gonna go all along the back and underneath the little fold in her boot. So all along the back. There we go. And then we'll take the E43 and bring the color out just a little bit more. And then E42. And then let's fill it in with the E41. And then we're going to repeat, so back with the E44. And then E43. E42. Whoops. And then this time with the E41, I'm just going to go back, starting in the lightest, and flick going in towards the dark. Okay, so we're going to color her little fall leaf with a bunch of different colors. So we're going to start with some YR07, and we're going to get out the YR14, and also the R32, and the YG93, and YG95. We're going to add all of these colors into our leaf. So I'm going to start with my YR07, and I'm going to come up in the center and then I'm going to take my R32 and I'm going to come up in the opposite direction. And then I'm going to take my YR14 and fill in that whole side. And then my YG95 all in this corner up here. and come into some of that orange. And then with the YG93, so we have a nice colorful leaf there. Now we're going to take the E44 and I'm just going to deepen up all those shadows. So I'm going to go down the center of the leaf. You could even add a couple extra little details to the leaf. All right, so now we are ready to color our pumpkin. I love, love, love coloring pumpkins. So we're going to get out the YR12, YR07, YR14, E99. All right, so now let's go ahead and we're going to start with the YR07. And I'm going to come along this side of the pumpkin all the way down. And I'm also going to make a couple extra little creases. So I'm going to come up and I'm going to stop about almost halfway, and the same thing up here. And I'm going to do the same exact thing on this side, so all the way up. And then I'm going to come in and make a couple extra little lines. So we're going to do the same thing here. So fully underneath the pumpkin and along the top of the pumpkin is going to be all shadowed. It's going to be a lot darker, so I'm going to come up on each side. And then I want to kind of come in between these lines here. So that way they look like they're going to connect, but then it's going to add a little bit more definition. All right, so now we're going to take the YR12 and I'm going to go over exactly where we just went, but I'm going to come down a little bit more. So I'm dragging that line down so that way it starts to fade and it pulls those lines out to really give those creases definition. Okay, so now we are going to take the YR14 and we're going to do the same thing. We're just defining those lines that we've already created. So I'm going to come down, come up, and then still shadow all behind those two. Okay, so now I'm going to take my E99, same thing. It's going to be a little bit darker, so it's going to add a lot more definition. So I'm not coming down all the way. I will behind this line here, but I want to drag out that E99 in order to get those really defined creases coming all the way down. And you don't want to just add them all the way down. You want to be able to take the lighter colors and drag them going up so that way they fade into the pumpkin. Now I'm going to go back with my YR07. And we want to go over that E99 completely. And we want to pull it down. So I'm doing a couple of flicks to pull down that E99. Now we're going to take the YR12 and I'm just going to lay the marker down and fill the entire pumpkin in. So as you can see, I'm not going back and forth trying to blend those out. I just want to fill the rest of the color in. And you can see how I have all that definition with those lines, that really gives the pumpkin its shape. Alright, so we are almost done. I'm just going to take my YR14 one more time and just really drag those lines. All right, now let's take, I forgot her little ponytail there, so I'm gonna take my R32 and fill that in. Now we are just about finished. I did add a couple little details using my white gel pen. So I'm just going to add some polka dots to her scarf. Make sure when you do this, you go actually on the outline. Looks a little bit more realistic that way. Give her a couple of little there on her cheeks. And I'm also gonna make a little dot in between, in the centers of those little pink polka dots that we added. All right, so there we have it. We have our cute, super cute little girl for the fall. I hope you enjoyed this month's video. See you again next month.